On Thanksgiving, my daughter did not raise a toast, she raised my laptop. And the moment she exposed my $12.5 million, I understood she was not trying to reveal a secret. She was trying to break me. I was standing near the end of the table, carving a slice of turkey for my niece, when Tamsin pushed back her chair so hard it scraped against the floor. She walked straight toward me, jaw tight, fingers clenched around the silver laptop I thought I had left safely upstairs. "Everyone needs to see this," she said. Her voice cut through the room sharper than the carving knife in my hand. Before I could speak, she flipped the screen toward the table. The number glowed across it, $12,500,000. For a moment, no one breathed. A fork slipped from someone's hand and clattered across a plate. My cousin whispered, "How long has she been hiding something like that?" I felt 20 pairs of eyes crawl over me like I was a stranger in my own home. My own sister leaned forward, squinting as if her sight might change what she was seeing. Tamsin lifted her chin. "Explain it. Mom, explain why you've been hoarding money while I've been drowning." Her voice trembled, not with pain, but with something colder satisfaction. I heard murmurs ripple around the table. I had no idea Lorraine had that kind of money. She never said anything. Why would she hide it from her own child? Tamsin took a step closer to me. "I've been struggling while you sit on this. You let me believe you barely had enough to cover the mortgage. You lied." I opened my mouth, but the words caught in my throat. They thought this was their discovery this moment. This number, this supposed betrayal, but I knew something they did not. 10 hours earlier, before a single guest arrived, I had already canceled everything. And as Tamsin's eyes drilled into mine, I felt the ground shift under my feet, pulling me toward a past I had tried my whole life to outrun. People assume mothers fade with age. Mine began fading when I was 22. That was the year Marvin Keaton packed 2 suitcases and left our small rental in Tacoma without looking back. He told me he needed space, but he never specified how much. Turned out it was the rest of his life. I remember standing in the doorway with Tamsin on my hip, her little fingers tangled in my hair, and thinking that if I cried, she would feel it. So I didn't. I took the first job I could get at the Washington State Historical Textile Archive. The pay was thin, but the work kept my hands steady and my mind occupied. I repaired century-old lace, rewove delicate silk panels, cleaned fibers that crumbled under the wrong breath. The staff barely noticed me at first, just a quiet woman who worked late and asked for no help. Tamsin was 3 when the family started calling her our fragile little prodigy. My sister Celeste would scoop her up during visits and whisper, "She's so sensitive. Such an old soul." If Tamsin cried, Celeste blamed the world. If she broke something, Celeste blamed her imagination. No one blamed Tamsin, and certainly no one blamed Marvin for vanishing. As the years passed, the archive trusted me with rarer pieces. A 19th century mourning shawl, a quilt carried across the Oregon Trail, a beaded dress from a forgotten actress. Collectors started reaching out quietly, asking for my hands on their treasures. I should have been proud, but every triumph was cut short. The day I finished restoring a Civil War uniform, Tamsin burst through the door, screaming that a girl at school had stolen her best friend. When I prepared a textile exhibit in Seattle, she fell during recess and demanded I leave work early, insisting it was an emergency for a bruise no bigger than a nickel. When she wanted something badly enough, she would clutch her chest and gasp as if she could barely breathe. I learned quickly that panic can be a performance, especially when it arrives right before holidays or important deadlines. Little by little, my life bent around hers. My silence became the glue that kept the peace. And my needs disappeared so gradually, I barely noticed when they were gone. My wealth was not lightning, it was a slow burn, stitched one thread at a time. The archive became my second home. And little by little, people outside its walls began to notice my work. One afternoon, a curator from the Smithsonian Traveling Textile Program stopped behind my table and watched my hands move across a damaged shawl. "You have rare precision," she said. "Would you consider consulting?" I thought she was joking. She was not. Those small contracts turned into steady ones. I worked late, traveled when I could, and learned how to negotiate for myself. A historian in Seattle put me in touch with private collectors who kept their estates quiet and their expectations high. They would hand me pieces wrapped in cotton sheets and say things like, "Do whatever you think is right, Ms. Keaton." The trust felt heavier than the artifacts themselves. I invested carefully. A few antique textile sales, a modest piece of old real estate in Tacoma's Stadium District before prices climbed. Small museum contracts here and there, nothing dramatic, nothing flashy, just slow, patient choices that grew year by year. No one noticed because I never changed how I lived. I wore the same worn wool coats, drove the same aging sedan, and ate the same lentil soup I had been making since Tamsin was a child. She certainly never noticed. I remember the day I tried to share something with her, truly share it. She was 15, sulking at the kitchen table, when I brought home an embroidered textile from the 1800s. "Look at this," I said, unfolding it gently. The stitches were done by hand. It took months to restore. She barely glanced up. "Why do you obsess over old rags?" The cloth slipped a little in my hands. I folded it back up and told her she didn't have to look. After that, I stopped showing her anything. My world became quieter, and I realized privacy was easier than disappointment. The fortune that grew from those years was never meant to be a weapon. It was the thing that made me feel like I existed beyond motherhood, the thing that proved I had built something of my own even if no one else ever saw it. After the reveal, she cornered me in the kitchen like she was owed an inheritance I never promised. The door had barely swung shut behind us before Tamsin spoke. "You are going to fix this," she said. Her voice was low, trembling not from fear but from fury she had been waiting years to unleash. I steadied my hands on the counter. "Fix what?" "Exactly, my life." She snapped. "Mom, I cannot keep living the way I've been living. People expect more from someone with my potential." She stepped closer, eyes bright and unblinking. "I want a condo downtown, something with real windows, not the cramped place I'm in now, and I need monthly support. Enough to breathe, enough to finally stop living under stress." The word stress hung between us like an accusation. "You want me to buy you a condo," I said quietly, "and cover your expenses every month." She didn't flinch. "I deserve stability. You've watched me struggle while you hid millions." "What kind of mother does that?" I swallowed hard. "You've changed careers 6 times. Tamsin, every time something gets difficult, you drop it and start over. That's called growth." She fired back, "But you wouldn't understand because you've never supported me. Not the way real mothers do." Her words hit a soft part of me I thought I had armored years ago. That old guilt, slow, heavy, familiar, rose up like a tide. "Tamsin," I said gently, "what is this really about?" Her jaw tightened. "Nothing. Do not turn this around." But a small slip in her voice told the truth. I had overheard her earlier on the phone. A man saying he couldn't keep doing this. A soft curse. A door slamming on her end. Her partner had left last month. She just had not said it out loud. She folded her arms, leaning forward. "I need you to step up. You owe me that." Her eyes were sharp, desperate, measuring what she could still take from me. And all I could feel was the weight of a lifetime pressing against my ribs, as if everything I had carried for her had shifted in my arms at once. Every sacrifice I made had a story. Tamsin remembered none of them. After the guests left and the house settled into a heavy silence, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of cold tea I didn't remember making. My hands shook, not from age, but from the kind of exhaustion that settles in bones long before it shows on your face. I kept seeing pieces of my life in sharp little flashes. The winter Marvin left, and I took double shifts at the archive, sleeping in my car because driving home wasted too much time and too much gas. The nights I spent stitching through tears because Tamsin needed new shoes, and payday was still a week away. The afternoon she was 14 and screamed at me in the hallway. "You ruined my life because I wouldn't let her skip school to go to a concert." She slammed her bedroom door so hard the frame cracked, and then sobbed loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Back then, I told myself it was a phase. Children say cruel things when they don't understand the weight of their words. But the older she grew, the sharper those words became. I should have set boundaries. I should have said no earlier, louder, steadier. Instead, I kept giving money, time, patience until she believed taking was her right and my silence was permission. At some point, I opened my phone, searching for something I couldn't name, a distraction, perhaps. Instead, I found her social media page still logged in from when she borrowed my computer a few weeks ago. A message thread caught my eye. My mom leeches off my checks. She had written, "I basically support her." My breath caught. She had typed it with confidence, as if it were truth, as if the nights I worked, the meals I skipped, the loneliness I carried had all belonged to someone else. I set the phone down carefully, almost gently, because the lie stung more deeply than the number she exposed at the dinner table. It was the story she chose to tell about me, a story she had repeated so often she believed it. And sitting there alone in my kitchen, I felt something inside me shift in a way it never had before. Her voice still echoed through the house when I opened my banking app. The walls were thin enough that I could hear her downstairs still pacing, still ranting, still painting herself as the victim of a mother who had somehow wronged her by surviving, by working, by building a life she never thought to ask about. I sat on the edge of my bed, the lamp casting a soft circle of light around me, and let the quiet settle over my shoulders. My thumb hovered over the first account. The monthly deposit I had been sending her for years blinked up at me. The amount scheduled for the 1st of next month. I pressed one button. Then another. Cancel transfer. The screen refreshed. Wiped clean. Next was the tuition contribution I had set up when she wanted to try community college again. She stopped going after 3 weeks, but the payments continued. I canceled them. Then the automatic transfer I had arranged for her rent, canceled. The emergency wire waiting in queue. $8,000 she had begged for last month with a story full of holes sat at the bottom of the list. She had no idea it was still pending. I deleted it with one tap. When the list cleared, I expected shaking hands, a racing heart, the sensation of stepping off a cliff. Instead, my pulse stayed calm, steady, almost unfamiliar. I breathed in and felt the weight on my ribcage shift. I opened another folder, one I had not touched in years, and pulled up a document I had drafted long ago. My estate plan. I read through the numbers, the allocations, the notes I had left for Tamsin, as if I might not get another chance to explain myself. Then I began to rewrite. Not final changes, not yet. But for the first time, the draft matched something closer to honesty. Her voice carried up from the living room. "She owes me." She shouted. "I'm her only child," a cousin murmured something back. And Tamsin's footsteps pounded across the floor. I closed the laptop slowly, the screen dimming to black. My hands rested on top of it, warm and steady, as if they finally remembered who they belonged to. Downstairs, the noise rose again, but it felt farther away than ever. By sunrise, my phone had become a weapon. The first text arrived at 5 in the morning. Tamsin, you cannot do this to me. A minute later, you have no idea what you're causing. Then I hope you're proud. I hope you sleep well knowing you ruined my life. Before I could finish reading, the next wave hit. Tamsin, you owe me. I am your daughter. After everything I've suffered, you choose yourself. Unbelievable. If you do not fix this, I swear I will never speak to you again. Her words swung from guilt to rage, then back to pleading. Please, Mom, I need you. Just talk to me. I am begging you. You are all I have. It would have broken me once. Now it just hollowed the space around me. By mid-morning, the relatives joined in, my sister Celeste. Why would you cut off your own child, a cousin I had not spoken to in years? You have more money than you'll ever use. Give her some peace. Another message. People are talking. This is not a good look for you. Lorraine. Every lie she'd told was blooming into something toxic. Around noon, a cousin named Emery sent a screenshot. Tamsin's profile picture glowed above a post. My mother abandoned me. She is heartless. Share this. My stomach tightened. The comments below were worse. I set the phone down. But it buzzed again. A message from Emery. Lorraine, how did she get into your accounts? I frowned, opened my laptop, and checked the security log. A familiar password appeared, one I had not used in years. One from an old set of documents Marvin left behind. I had shown that password to no one except him and one accountant shortly before he left. I knew exactly where I had stored it. Tamsin had gone through my drawers. She had searched for something she could use. The hurt that came next was not sharp. It was quiet, deep, and final. I did not want revenge. I wanted peace. The morning after the messages flooded in, I walked into a small office in downtown Tacoma. The door read Rowan Hale, Estate and Family Law. He looked younger than I expected. Early 40s at most. But his eyes held the kind of steady patience I had not seen in years. Ms. Keaton, he said, standing as I entered. Please sit. You said this was urgent. I handed him my phone first. The thread of messages from Tamsin, the screenshots relatives had forwarded. Then I opened my laptop and showed him the access log. He read in silence, scrolling slowly, absorbing every word. When he finally looked up, his voice had changed. This isn't just manipulation, he said. This is financial abuse. The words struck harder than anything Tamsin had thrown at me. Abuse. A part of me wanted to protest. Say she was my daughter. Say I had allowed this. But Rowan lifted a hand gently. Love does not excuse this. He added, and you are not required to tolerate it. He drafted a set of formal notices, firm, direct, legally binding. No more contact from relatives. No more harassment. If anyone continues, we escalate. His certainty felt like a rope thrown across a wide river. Then we moved to my estate plan. The document I had rewritten the night before stared up at me from his desk. Are these changes what you really want? He asked. I nodded. The majority of my estate would go to a historical preservation grant supporting textile restoration programs. A portion would go to my niece, Emery Price, who had never asked for anything. Nothing. No automatic inheritance. No financial promise would be guaranteed to Tamsin. Rowan slid the file back to me. Then let's make it official. When I signed, the tension in my chest loosened. Slow but steady. I could breathe again. Not deeply yet, but freely enough to feel the edges of peace forming around me. Freedom did not look like a grand gesture. It looked like a small house by the water. I moved into a modest condo near Ruston Way. Nothing extravagant. Just 2 quiet rooms overlooking Commencement Bay. The first night, I sat on the floor with a bowl of soup and listened to the soft wash of waves against the rocks. No footsteps, no slamming doors, no demands waiting behind a phone screen. A few days later, I walked into the Washington Women's Textile Shelter and asked if they needed volunteers. The director, a woman named Mariella, looked surprised when I told her my background. "You restored 19th century fibers," she asked. "I did," I said. She handed me a box of torn garments. "Then you're exactly the kind of hands we need." I spent the morning mending pieces slowly, stitch by stitch. The women drifted in and out of the room, some shy, some curious, some carrying their entire worlds in plastic grocery bags. I kept my voice soft, letting them decide how close to stand. At lunch, a young volunteer with bright curls sat beside me. "Are you Lorraine Keaton?" she asked. I hesitated. "Yes." She grinned and pulled a museum catalog from her tote. "I studied your restoration on the Oregon Trail quilt. Our professor said it was one of the most delicate textile recoveries done in the last decade." For a moment, my breath caught. No one had spoken to me like that in years. Later that week, I met an old friend, Isolde Rivers, at a cafe near the marina. She hugged me tightly. "You look lighter," she said. "Like you finally stopped apologizing for existing." We talked for hours, books, art, nothing about Tamsin. I did not tell her about the messages still appearing online, the cryptic posts Tamsin made to pull sympathy from strangers. I simply turned my phone face down and let the noise pass like weather. As the sun set over the bay, a quiet realization settled in me. I had built a life outside of motherhood, and it was finally allowed to breathe. The message came on a Wednesday. "Do you still want me in your life?" I stared at it for a long time. The words sounded unfamiliar coming from her soft, almost frightened. Nothing like the woman who had shouted through my house on Thanksgiving. A second message followed. "I am overwhelmed. Everything is falling apart. I do not have anyone else." "Then you are my mother. You cannot just leave me behind," I typed slowly. "I never left you." Before I could send it, another bubble appeared. "I am not asking you for money, but I do not know what to do anymore." Still no apology, no acknowledgement, just fear of being alone. I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "Mom." Her voice cracked, thin as thread. "I'm here," I said. She sniffed hard. "I do not understand why you're doing all this. Why everything changed." "It changed because I did," I said quietly. "And because something had to," she exhaled shakily. "I cannot fix everything by myself." "You do not have to fix everything," I said. "But you do have to start taking responsibility for what you break." The line went silent. It was the kind of silence that used to make me rush in. Soothe, reassure, take the blame before she even asked. This time, I let it stay. "Do you still want me?" she finally whispered. I closed my eyes. "I want you to grow up, Tamsin. And I want the life I have now." Her breath hitched. "So that's it. After all these years, no." I said, "This is the beginning, a different one." I opened my email and attached the updated estate plan, the one Rowan helped finalize. Everything clear, everything honest, nothing left unsaid. "I'm sending you something," I told her. "Read it when you're ready." She didn't answer, not a word. The call ended with a silence that felt heavier than any argument we had ever had. I stepped out onto the balcony, the evening air cool against my face. The water moved steadily below, soft and certain, like a rhythm I had finally learned to match. If you've ever rebuilt yourself after someone tried to take you apart, tell me your story in the comments. And if you want more chapters like this, make sure you like and subscribe. I'll be here, writing my way forward.